phone. But right now I'm quite impressed, I must say. So the recording will be posted on our Facebook. Um, have you joined Facebook? Not? Do you know how to?
Yes.
You do know how to? Please do. Some of the students are participating in there. Some have written very interesting and nice comments. And the idea of the Facebook is not for you to arrange for dates, okay, or for answers, but turn it into a learning experience. Right. Okay. My name is Nick Coetzee. I'm one of the coordinators of this module, visual literacy. And the lady next to me is Zinzi Mavuso, and she and I are the two principals that is in charge of this module. Okay. You are more than welcome to get hold of us if you have a problem that cannot be resolved in any other way. You are more than welcome to come and make appointments with us as well. But it is very important that you must also realize that it's important for you to try and be as self-sufficient as you can. Okay. The idea is to teach you how to find your own way through information, how to get answers to questions and things like that. So that's part of the skill of being a person with a degree, is you have that kind of autonomy. Okay. So it's not that we're unwilling, but we want you to push your boundaries just a little bit. Okay. Right, and now we have a brief program. There are a number of things that we just want to bring to your attention, and then perhaps later on we'll look at a few of the questions without giving you answers, okay? But you'll be able to make your own deductions, okay? If you have any questions, there is nothing like a silly question. And what is so bad if I tell you it's a silly question? You know, you're still around, you will survive that, you know. So don't be scared asking questions. That's really what I'm saying. This is now the opportunity. There will be 5 more such sessions, and by that time we'll be right at where the exam is. Okay. If you feel you want individual attention and you stay in the area and you can come to my office, you're more than welcome to do so, and I will encourage you. Sign the register. It's an interesting case where non-verbal communication didn't work, see, didn't understand. Okay. Zinzi? Yeah. No, it's fine. Maybe a little bit of information about the module that you may find interesting. Where are you from?
I'm from Soweto.
Soweto. Okay. There's in the vicinity of Soweto, there's about 50 other students. Yeah. We have 923 students that are registered for this module. Okay, so it's quite a big module for the humanities. All right. And for the first time this year, we have changed the format. In previous years, we required students to write essay-type questions. And one of the assignments would be a multiple choice assignment. Do you know what multiple choice refers to? Yeah. There's a question and then there are possible answers, and you have to reason out the correct answer. Not guess, reason. Okay. I can tell you, according to the research, if you guess, you will get always about 15%. That's how many times you are statistically likely to guess correctly. Okay. The questions are not difficult. You may be a little bit unused to them, but they are not really difficult. Okay. The reason why I'm telling you how many students we have is because they've spread all over the country. the big concentration is, of course, Gauteng, and then Durban, and then significantly less down the Cape, which is quite interesting. What I also find interesting is that our students in Polokwane is growing very fast, and in Mpumalanga, which is really unexpected, but it's of course most welcome. If you want to make contact with students from your own region, you know, UNISA is an unforgiving system. You're isolated, you don't know if you're on the right track, you know, you may have your reasons for not wanting to contact the lecturers and so on. Then what you have to do is you have to write me an email saying that you would like to be part of such a group, and you give me permission. This is the important part. You must give me permission to give your contact details to fellow students. Okay. Without that, of course, there's no way of joining the thing. But I can't give your personal information to anyone. Are we on the same page? Yes, sir. That is it. Please sign the register and then join us. Thank you. Okay. So Zinzi is going to make a few preliminary remarks of things that you should know, or if you know them already, you know, ask questions and so on. And then afterwards, I will talk to you about some of the structure of the module and how the things fit together. Because I think a lot of you are perhaps not quite sure how the module fits together. Zinzi.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I apologize in advance to everyone on the video because you probably can't see me from here. I'm speaking probably to the converted. A lot of students have issues with accessing their MyLife and MyUNISA, so this is just an intro to this. Let me just see if I can make it better. Okay. So, again, probably
the camera is demonstrating a mind of its own. Isn't it amazing that it can fall like this and still function? It's really weird.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you have not claimed MyLife, you'll see on you go onto MyUNISA, UNISA website, and then there'll be a link directing you to MyUNISA. At the top there's something written specifically claim UNISA login. That's what you will select, and from there, basically, you will be prompted. They'll ask for your student number, which you will get at registration, and you'll be prompted to do the rest. Something else you should note is that all of our formal communication will come through your MyLife. So you need to check your MyLives regularly. And also, because your MyUNISA is connected to your MyLife, most of the communication we make is through announcements on MyUNISA. So immediately when we make the announcement, it will be available on your MyLife. It goes automatically to your MyLife so that it can prompt you to go back onto MyUNISA if there are any emergency notifications that we need to give you guys. So it's important for everyone to have their MyLife active and to check it on a regular basis. Is there anyone in the room that has had difficulties with accessing MyUNISA? Okay. I just want to log on to MyUNISA and so once you get onto the MyUNISA page, you go under My Modules, where you'll find Sites. Then you go specifically to the module site that you're looking for information regarding. And then those tabs will direct you with everything you need in terms of getting your assignment. So to complete assignment 1, you'll go under assessment info, but what will be now revealed will not be quite relevant to you guys because our views are different. But you'll go onto assessment info, and my user will prompt you in terms of how to fill in the MCQ, the multiple choice question for assignment 1 and assignment 3. Okay. That's just the basics. I wanted to just make sure everyone was on the sort of same playing level field, so that coming into the module, you know how to access these sites, and whenever you have any issues, please do email us.
Can I just add quickly? It's important that when you communicate with us, whether it is via WhatsApp or an email or even if you phone, have your student number ready. Okay, that's the only way I have to check whether you are a registered student or not. Now the reason is I don't want to talk to somebody for 20 minutes that's not a student. You see what I'm saying? So that's really the reason why we do it. And I usually ask you for your direct email accounts if you have such. We'll use that as far as we can in addition. But once we've made a communication to your MyLife account, we consider that we have communicated with you. But sometimes it's not reliable, and if you have an alternative, then it will also go through to them. I understand that you can set your MyLife account that it automatically goes to your direct email account if you have such. But perhaps you were not aware of it. You will retain your MyLife account for the rest of your life. So if you want to have that at least, once you've registered and been given it, it's yours. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Visit my UNISA, please, as regularly as you can. Sometimes you will receive an SMS that will say to you, please visit my UNISA. Please go to my UNISA because there will be some other posting in there that you should be aware of. Okay. So what I want to, can I go and stand there? What I want to do is just explain to you how the module works, what the structure of the module is. It's architecture. Okay. And this contains very important information because it will allow you to plan, to be a little bit smart as to how you approach your studies and where you put your energy. Okay. There are 3 assignments. Okay. The first assignment is a multiple choice assignment. The second assignment is a short essay assignment. And by short essay we mean a 1-pager or 1.5 pages that we expect you to write, to type, whatever. And then assignment number 3. Okay. Assignment number 3 is also a multiple choice. We have something here at UNISA that we call the assessment plan. It's a fancy word that doesn't really mean much, but what it boils down to, in our assessment plan for this module, we have divided the final mark. The final mark is the mark you will get that say whether you have passed or failed. Okay, the final mark consists of your year mark, in other words, the mark that you got for your 3 assignments, okay, as well as your examination mark. Those 2 get added and averaged, and you get to your final mark. Okay, the final mark is made up as follows. Your assignments count for 40% of your final mark. So it's very well worth your while to put a lot of time into your assignments. Okay. You will not only learn more that way, you will be better prepared for the exam. Okay, so the division between the the different assignments at this time, they all have equal value. And that will tell you, obviously, that assignment number 2 is actually loaded a little bit. Okay. Despite that, it's a written assignment. Despite that, the exam will be completely MCQ. 50 questions. All right. Now, do not get anxious about the exam now. Let's cross that bridge when we come to it. But there will be nothing unfamiliar in the exam. All right. You're smart. You know what I'm telling you now. All right. So it is in your favor because you can influence the mark you get for the assignment by putting in more time and more effort into doing the assignments well. The year mark, this is what you must understand. If you hand in only one assignment and say you got, just by way of demonstration, 60%, but you do not hand in another assignment, that 60% will be divided by 3 because there are 3 assignments. Okay, so it is hugely in your favor to try and hand in all the assignments. Okay, even if you just then get 20% for the assignment, it's something, and it will go towards that 40%. Okay. Now, we set the assignments, and when we set the assignment, we say, in order for you to answer these questions, you should read these sources. Now, they are called the e-reserves. They're supposed to be all electronically available on the library system, and they are. Zinzi and myself have been struggling with last week, really seeing to it that all the e-reserves are either at the e-reserves. We don't have any formal control over what is on the e-reserves because that's the library's platform. But we've posted everything else on the additional. Okay, so they are all there. Now, I know many students complain that they cannot access the e-reserves. Here's the bad news. Okay, if you go to my office and you get on my computer, I can only do what you do from home on your computer. I don't have a magic channel that gives me super fast access to e-reserves or anything like that. So we say if we can access the e-reserve, you must also be able to. It is a crucial skill that you have to learn for yourself. Okay. One of the things that set people apart with degrees is, as I have said, they can find information themselves. And where do we find most of our information? Thank the Lord, not anymore on newspapers, but now maybe even worse, on the internet. So you have to be internet literate. You have to be able to find your way on the internet, and so on and so on. So that's a skill that you have to learn. It's just one of those things. It's not, because I think it's a good idea that you won't be really a proper functioning person if you don't, if you can't find your way around the internet and find sources on the internet and information and stuff that you need. So that's part of the skill that we teach. So, having said that, and I'm glad that Zinzi drew my attention to a post on the Facebook group. Although the answers to the questions are in the reading that you are supposed to do, I don't want you to think of this as a search and destroy kind of a mission. Okay, I want you to rather understand. Okay, so read the e-reserves. Okay, now it is a lot of reading, but it's not that much. If you in the tutorial later, I explain to you how we plan the module in terms of time management and so on. Okay, and in that we allocate about 10 minutes per page that you have to read. That's not excessive. In fact, it's actually quite liberal. So what I'm saying is there's more than enough time for you to read the e-reserves and the study guide and all of that. Okay. So the module has been planned in such a way that you can easily master the reading. Okay. I want to talk to you just very briefly about how do you read, or how I think you should read. Okay. Usually when we read, we come to a text with a certain expectation. You understand what I'm saying? You expect to get something out of that text. Okay. You expect to remember what you've read, isn't it? Yeah. And you not only expect to remember what you've read, you expect to remember everything. And therefore you read an article and you come to the end of it and you put it aside and you say, oh, I don't remember anything of what I've read. And then what do? You panic. Okay. So you have to change your expectation. And you have to change your expectation by changing how you read through a text. I am fully persuaded, completely, that anything we expect you to read is worth reading a second and a third time as well. Okay, if it's good, you can read it again. And then just to give yourself another little kick, read it again. Okay, so how do I read? And I'm just explaining this to you so you can then decide how you're going to approach it yourself. When I read a new text, a chapter in a book or so, first of all, I never say to myself, I'm going to read this from front to back in one go. I read, and say after about 3 paragraphs or a page or so, I then set it aside and I ask myself, what have I just read? And then I write down a few words, a few key words, things like that. Okay. And then you go back to the text and you, oh yes, I've remembered largely correctly. Okay, we're popular this morning, eh? Maybe we're going to have to go somewhere. Okay. You must please all sign the register, eh? Because I have something that they call IPMS, and so has Lindsay. Okay?
Back on.
Okay. So that's the way you then do it. You take it chunk by chunk. And even if you do it like that, you read a page, you set it aside, you write down on a piece of paper what you can remember, you go back to the text, you verify what you have remembered, and you make a note of what you perhaps have slipped your memory. And in that way, you will work your way through the article. It sounds as if it is extremely laborious and it takes a lot of time. It does not. The moment you get used to it, it actually gets a momentum of itself. All right? Speed reading is out. It's an abomination. Okay? You don't do speed reading. If you don't like reading, then don't read. Okay? Don't come to a university if you don't like reading. Okay? And if you like reading, why do you want to speed read? You know what I'm saying? Reading is about understanding. It's about comprehension. It's not about articulating the words as your eyes catch them on a page or something. Okay? So in that way, you will then become familiar with that article. If you find an article too difficult, then go to another one. Because they more or less talk about the same things, you understand? And that way you will be able to build up a frame of reference and you will become familiar and you will come to feel comfortable with the terminology and the new words and so on. You will recognize certain patterns, certain words and keywords that are used by all the authors and so on. And in that way you become part of the conversation, really. Okay, so, and if you are fairly familiar with some of these e-reserves, most of them preferably, you will be able to answer those questions. I can assure you. We spent hundreds of hours formulating those questions. The answers are there. I know. I found them there. Okay. So, but again, I don't want you to think of this as a spying expedition, you know, a sort of hide and seek exercise. It's more important for you to understand it. When you understand it, you will see that some of those questions you can do without looking up their answer in a e-reserve. You will know what the answer is. Okay. Now, it's important that you must understand what our job is. Our job is, one day when you walk in the street with a degree, and one of your subjects was visual literacy, what sets you apart is that if somebody comes to you and say to you, you know, have you seen a newspaper about this artwork or this artist and so on? Then you can give them an informed opinion or an informed response. This is what it says if you have studied art. Okay. So it's not about being just ordinary and spewing platitude. That certificate marks you out as a person with special skills and special insights. That's why I emphasize the thing of understanding and comprehension. Right. So you can see from this, we have the tutorial letter where the assignment brief is, and you have to read the e-reserves and the texts in order to do the assignment brief. Okay. So that's how the whole hangs together. And then we come to the exam, and the exam counts for 60% of your final mark, and the examination will not break new ground. It will all be familiar to you. Okay? So we're not going to spring nasty surprises on you for the exam and so on. But having said that, we can then mark the exam with a little bit of higher expectations. So the questions may not look exactly the same, because there are also a few of them that have a few mistakes in them. Okay, but they will, as I say, it will not break new ground. It will all be familiar to you. All right. Okay. Can I just ask you as a, this is, I can't say as a personal favor to me or anything like that. Let me just ask you straight up. Please don't form little groups and divide the questions into the number of people in the group and then swap answers. Okay? It serves no purpose. All right. You do not learn anything. All right. And I don't think you're at the university because you don't want to learn anything. Okay. It's not that excessively difficult. Okay. Any questions you want to ask? Have you understood what I've said to you? Can you recall what I've said to you? You better listen to the recording, okay? Okay, can I ask you, whom of you have actually read through some of the study material? Okay, very nice. I'm very impressed. That's good. Have you read how did you read the tutorial letter 101? From page 1 to the end of the first semester? Is it? Okay. Were you able, when you were reading through it, to say to yourself, oh, I can already answer this question? Have you had that experience? Okay. That's good. That is good. It means that the material is not completely unfamiliar. Any of you that have not received or have not looked at study material yet? No. Okay. You. Have you not received yours? Where do you stay? She was on Google.
Were you able to access your MyNISA?
Yeah.
Okay, you can.
It's all online.
Yeah, you can print it all off from there. Unfortunately, it's now an extra cost to you. But on that point, I know it means maybe to some of you a lot more money, but print out those sources, that you have it in black and white. And the reason why I'm saying this, wonderful as this thing is, the medium of the mobile phone is entertainment and not information. Okay. There's this Canadian media specialist called Marshall McLuhan. I don't know if you've heard of him. If you haven't, now you have. And he coined the phrase, the medium is the message. And he made the point that when you open a newspaper, this is what the word news means. It means that you're going to read about things that have happened recently, and it will no longer be news tomorrow. So the act of forgetting is almost built into the act of reading it. See, because that's what the medium says. Tomorrow when you read the paper, it will be different. And the mobile phone is entertainment. When I sit and wait anywhere, I see everyone's playing games on their cell phone. Oh, isn't that so? Yeah. Or WhatsApp, or what? Okay, WhatsApp is a grey area, but even so. And not very grey, I can tell you. It's sometimes a very red area, if you ask me. But the point still is that the medium of the mobile phone is not unambivalent. Okay, it's not clearly information. And in any case, the information on there is very seldom 100% reliable. Okay, so that's, but whereas when you have an academic article, all one chapter. My favorite. This is a chapter from a book. This medium says to you, what's written on these pages are important and significant. This is heavy shit, man. That's what this is. That's what it says. Okay. And you then come with that expectation to the text. Not all texts are equal. This one is one of the better ones. Okay. Can you read it? Becoming Animal. Peffer, John Peffer. Yeah. And then you have ones like Horror Histories. Now tell me that is not a catchy title. Were you not fascinated? Who have read this? Not? Oh, you're in for a joyride stuff. Okay. So print it out and rather keep it, preserve it. Make notes on it, of course, and so on. It's not, the thing itself is not precious. It's just the information that it contains. Okay. Zinzi, you want to add something?
No, I was just looking at time and thinking that maybe we should start with the questions.
Yeah. Has everyone signed the register? This will earn Zinzi and me every IPMS point. Sign on the dotted line for another 50 years. Okay. Right, do you have your tutorial letter with you?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe we can start off with making a little bit of a prediction. Probably the due date will be moved, okay? But if you have done the assignment and you are satisfied with your answers that you're on top of your game, hand it in, all right? And if you want to, you can always retract your assignment. You can always retract an MCQ assignment on the MyUnisa portal. Okay, but don't, when we now say the due date is so and so and so, handing on that day. Why? It's not necessary. Okay. Yes.
Sorry, may I ask a question? You earlier referred to a 40-60 split between the semester mark, but the tutorial letter mentions a 20-80.
Yes, this is one of the things that I have changed. Okay, what happened in broad strokes was the following. We had another member of staff who took over from me I'm an old man, I'm turning 64, so we need to do career planning, you understand? And then, while she was busy with the 101, she got another job at another university and she preferred to go there. So I was reverted to my old position as coordinator, and Zinzi then joined me, and we then sort of together and in consultation with the rest of the department as well. We then changed that. Okay.
So
You will probably find that the people who have registered in the last 2 or 3 weeks, their 101 letter will reflect the correct split. Okay. Do you think we should post something to that effect on the announcement?
I think they'll get it through the video.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But it's a fair question. Yeah. So that's the way it will sort of break down. Okay. We've never, to me, this is a little bit of unknown territory. And let me be honest with you, the reason why I did this was not to second guess the previous person, is I want you to get away from this examination mania. You know, we have in this country this hysteria about matric. And when you come to university, it's all about the exam and passing the exam. No, it's not. It's not. That's why I think where you can control your own effort, which is during the coursework in the year, it should get more recognition. That's the reason why I did that. Okay. Okay. I am on page 14. Question.
Before we get to specifics on the questions,
Okay.
just broadly, if you look through the questions, you'll notice that the first couple of questions really ask you questions that you should be able to relate to on a, I've never read anything related to this module before, but I can have some insight on this just based on my own understanding. So they're more introductory sort of questions to ease you into the assignment, but also so that you're aware that some of these things, and as much as they are very content specific, some questions are very content specific, but a lot of them do really require your own sort of understanding and your own reasoning. And it's not completely dependent on just the e-reserves, as Nick has said, iterated a couple of times. And then as we move into it, then it goes more into how is art read. This is based a lot on the Barrett and the Lister reading, just to give you an overview of how to read art for people that maybe didn't take art in high school. Give you a basic understanding, and I think that's the main purpose of those 2 readings. And then it gets more specific into terminology, like you'll find in question 15, 16, I'm not sure about the numbers, it starts to speak about terminology like the gaze. So it slowly introduces you into some of the terms that you'll become sort of, depending on how far you carry on with the art journey, terms that will sort of come at you throughout your career. And then closer to the end are more very content-specific questions. And when I say content-specific, I mean specific to the e-reserves.
Yeah,
so you'll
maybe
find
less obvious.
references specifically to the e-reserves. Just to give you an outline of how the questions are structured.
When I was coerced into dropping my bias against multiple choice questions, and I had a very strong bias against it. I'm completely converted now. We received training about what's the ideal way to frame a multiple choice question. And there are untold number of variants and so on. But the one you may just keep in mind, not that it is applied very much, but just to give you an idea. This is where you have 4 options. You have the question, and you have 4 options. Of those 4, 1 is obviously wrong, so you actually sit with 3 options. Okay. Then 2 of the 3 are partially right, but also significantly wrong, and that is a process of elimination. Sometimes you can arrive at the right answer by simply eliminating those that are less correct. Okay. Now we don't do it as a standard rule. Okay, but all the questions you can actually argue out. And you start your argument by actually reading the question very carefully. Okay, because frequently in the question itself is a hint at what the best answer could be. Okay. Now, if we look at question number 1, first of all, please note that in that question we talk about visual culture. Remember, the name of this course is visual literacy. Okay, so it's not only about high art. If you understand what I'm saying, we want you to think of it as, as a broader category. Visual culture that can include anything. It will, of course, also include visual art, pieces or concepts and things like that, but it is not necessarily confined to that. And this question really asks the very basic thing, and it says, how is that relationship between us and visual things? How does that get articulated? How does it happen? What are the mechanisms and the devices in our society that allow us to meaningfully use this phrase? See, so I suppose you can go and you can read 100 books in search of the answer, but you will find the answer to be not as elusive. Just think about it and try and understand what these options are. In everyday symbolic and expressive practices, everyday symbolic practices. Symbolic practices are those actions and thoughts that we have on a daily basis. We can, it can have many names, conventions, stuff like that. Despite the grand language, it actually talks about very plain and obvious things. Okay. You must learn the confidence to make those kinds of analysis, to say grand words, but it actually talks about very commonplace things. The word everyday gives you the idea. So it's not reserved for highly special and unique circumstances. Visual culture happens to us all the time. I'm sure one can even make a bit of an analysis that the semiotic of what is happening here is also part of visual culture, isn't it? Here I am, an ugly old white man, and I've got an adoring audience of 30. Surely there's a structure there. And that allows for expressive possibilities, does it not? Yeah. So you must just, don't rush yourself. The ideas will come to you. And these very basic orientation questions is really to get you to think about the fundamental premises, your position within this. Where are you when you are interacting with visual culture? What is it that you do? How can we typify those thoughts and actions and so on? Okay. Now, what is a material artifact? Not a trick question. Yeah, this is a material artifact. This is a material artifact. The pen, the book, the bag, your clothing, anything. An artwork is also a material artifact. Do You think that's part of visual culture? Part of visual reality? Yeah, sure it is. Yeah. And what is an image? That's difficult. Anything? Yes, sir. I see you have it on the tip of your tongue.
An image.
Anything you can see, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, sometimes the most simplest things are the most difficult to articulate. Yeah. Like this. It is so fundamental. It's so basic. You know. Did you want to talk about question 2?
I'm wondering if we should go through each question.
No, only ones with more. Only ones with more. It can also do with inclusion. Okay. Okay. Now the same way that we've dealt with question 1 also applies to question 2. It seeks for you to articulate the obvious. That's really it. Okay. Can you, if I ask you, what kind of a context is produced by advertising? Or news? Or what's the other one? Social documentary. It's a difficult question, isn't it? But it's an easy answer. All these answers are easy, actually. You know, context really refers to a situation that has its own rules and conventions. That's really what it is. So, if you have an advertisement, what kind of an advertisement? Advertisement for television, one that used to run in front of films. I don't know if they haven't been to the movies for so long. I don't know if they still show advertisements for the movie, do they?
They still do.
They still do. Okay. Yeah, well, you better take me to the movie so I can reacquaint myself with that stunning reality, you know, for sure. See, we don't need to go into the differences between television and media or magazine advertisements or anything like that. Our world is pervasively filled with advertisement images, and those images also speak of a kind of a reality. In South Africa, maybe the advertisements are very fancy. Some and ads are very humorous and things like that. You see, they create their own rules. They elicit a kind of a response, but it's always the aim for that. This is what you must understand: is it's always to make money. Point of sale. That's what it is. It doesn't mean if it's point of sale, it's not part of visual culture. You understand? And so you can actually say, well, television is a visual media. We get our news mostly from television. It has its own rules and things like that. Everything is a soundbite. Or a huge comic event like when the previous president of the country can't find his way in court papers. We have to look at that for 10 minutes and stuff like that. And then, what do we do with images? How do we understand images? In a very basic sense. Yes?
When you look at the image, it's mostly you trying to understand the message that you've received from the image and how it feeds the information.
What would you call that action of trying to understand the image? Interpretation. Interpretation is a bit of a fancy word. I'm a little bit jealous about that because that's what Barrett tries to teach you with these guidelines. Yeah, analysis, isn't it? Yeah, that's really what you do. Yeah, there it is. It's really analysis. So we We elicit information out of an image. Okay, that's very important. An image gives us information. And then we do something with that information. And if it is complex information, we put it all together and we make our own story, and that's where interpretation comes in. All right. And it happens all the time. But in your case, you have to become conscious of that. You have to do that deliberately, openly. Yes, sir, please come in. Have a seat there or there. Just sign the attendance register, please. No, you're not. Are you sure it's today?
What is it?
No. Foundation of Music. It's the right apartment, but
I wonder if it doesn't happen on South Campus. I have a sneaky suspicion on South Campus. To be honest, and I can just go ask her.
okay. Take a seat. Take a seat. Take a seat and don't listen. It may confuse you. Now clearly the information of an image, the more you know, the more information you will get out of the image. Because you will build up a frame of reference, you will gain historical knowledge. And in the discipline of art history and art theory, we have all kinds of names of why certain images occur. We call it iconography. It means that it is the sequence of the use of certain images in, or certain features within images and so on.
Please repeat that word. It's icon.
Iconography. When we hear today, that man is an icon of that, and so on. And even a piece of music is iconic, which is of course nonsense. There's no way that a piece of music can be iconic because music is not visual. It's as simple as that. That's the kind of distinctions that you must begin to make. Don't fall into this very tender trap of sloppy thinking, using words unthinkingly as if it's okay. You know where you end up when you do that. When you ask somebody directions in the street and they say, yeah, you go there, over there, and make a short left. And then there you go, and to the right, maybe that's the place. That's where sloppy thinking That's where sloppy thinking takes you. That's where what I want you to understand, that you must be careful in formulating. There is enough words in a language for you to be able to express yourself fairly clearly. Okay. Okay. Yes, next year.
Okay, I don't know based on any book, but how images are experienced through galleries and museums. Usually there's a distance between the work and the people, and then they just go around and witness the artwork and maybe learn a few information out of it, and they create their own assumptions when I look at it.
Well, I'm laughing because everything you say is absolutely true and correct. It's just confused.
Yeah.
You understand? Hey, it's not a trick question. Here we are. Now it's time. Now you use your imagination. You visualize. Okay, you visualize. And what do you visualize? You visualize a generic museum or a gallery. Incidentally, what's the difference between a gallery and a museum? Come, it's not a trick question. Yes.
I think a gallery contains certain things of a specific artist, and a museum contains a couple of artifacts from different times of history and different people. It's like a collection that is made to come together by different people.
That's excellent. That's how it should be. Okay, you should listen carefully. That's the right answer, except that reality is different. Because you have the Pretoria Art Museum and you have the Johannesburg Art Gallery, and they're exactly the same. But yes, that was the distinction, and that's why it's difficult to think of a commercial museum. A commercial gallery is quite a common thing. Okay, so it's a place. It's usually a building, or at least it's a room, isn't it? And what happens when you go to the gallery? You walk through the door, isn't it? And you keep on moving. So you move past the images. How long do you think, how long do you think is the average time spent by a visitor to a museum or a gallery in front of an image, say a painting?
In front of one image?
Yeah, the average.
Less than a minute.
Less than a minute. Wise words, what do you say?
I would say it varies, it depends.
Yeah,
on
then
the
I'm talking
museum.
averages, yeah.
Oh, averages, then I
Yeah.
would say, okay, she's right, that's the
She's almost right, yes. Anyone else want to hazard a guess?
I guess if you really want to like just understand the work, then you're probably going to spend like between 3 and 5 minutes, maybe just like trying to understand what's happening in the image, trying to understand and trying to analyze what you see.
Yeah.
So
No, you're entirely correct, except art is also happens, visual culture also happens in the context of art tourism, where 2 million Taiwanese people are pushed through a gallery and they have to be out in 10 minutes. The average time is 17 seconds.
That's unfair.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Okay, so, but the point is, here you are in the building and you walk around the things and so on, and whenever you stop, it's you in front of that artwork, isn't it? It's only you. It's not everyone, it's you. So there's that kind of a relationship as well, you see. And then that artwork that you look at is surrounded by other artworks. So it also creates its own unique context that we can name. It's the art space, it's a art space. The white cube, the art world. You don't find yourself at a sports event or at a rock band festival or anything. No, you're in a space that is dedicated to the art world. That's what that surely changes your expectations, and it changes your conventions, and it changes your responses, isn't it? So these are basic things. That's the purpose of these questions, is for you to actually in your mind traverse these assumptions that I've just sort of explained to you, because that's what you must constantly keep in mind. And I can see from the answers that I've got, you actually know, it's just a bit of confidence, that's all, and finding the right words and feeling comfortable in using the right words and so on. Okay. Question 7. That's the page 1. Do you want to talk to us about that?
So there's issues with the Lister and Wells reading. You'll notice that the pages were extracted out of a book, and in the book there were pages 61 to 91, is that corrected? But when you read the e-reserve, you find it reads from page 1 to 25. So in that conversion, the numbering has shifted, but the information is still all the same. For question 7 in particular, you'll find the image being referred to. It says page 77 on the question, but in the additional resource that's attached, that's being sent to everyone, it will be on page 18.
Okay, so this is the image we're actually looking at, and here you can see the problem. The problem is not the images. Can you see a number of the page on the screenshot? Because this is actually what this is. Don't complicate it. I can explain to you how it happened. When the university applied for license use of this, they say we want to use 25 pages. Those pages then get numbered, 1 to 25, and that's why it's this confusion. Okay. But it's not as if we were comatose or willful when we referred you to the correct page number.
And then on question 11, there is a slight issue around interpreting, well, words having multiple interpretations. In fact, I think I want to start with what people made of the question. So the question reads, what does the framing of the photograph offer? And the issue the issue I'm referring to is a double meaning of framing. And I'm just curious to see or read from the room how many people or how people have perceived or understood the phrase or the word framing.
How it was selected, how it was pinpointed out.
Thank you. So just a little louder because
sorry.
for the people that are not physically here.
How the image was chosen and pinpointed out of the whole.
So sort of post creating the question, reading the question in the study in the tutorial letter, I with people that don't have art background, with an issue of people maybe interpreting this in the most literal sense of a frame around so it was merely a clarity on.
So to be clear, it's not to be interpreted as an actual frame.
It's not the actual frame, it's how the image is framed, for lack of a better word, what is being captured within the image, as opposed to what beautiful wooden thing is put around it.
Can I complicate the matter just slightly? Okay. Sorry. But you can imagine an artwork that uses references to actual frames, but not as a framing device. You understand? Then you would interpret that metaphorically or symbolically.
To go back to question 7 though, outside of technicalities now, just in terms of reading and understanding the question. You haven't gone through the question, have you?
No.
So the question reads, how do subjects, boys of the image, photograph of a school, resist institutional control? And I'm hoping everyone has at least seen the image, even if you haven't really read up on it, or read the text associated with it. And I'd like us collectively to provide a reading of this image, sort of with the question 7 in the back of our minds. So what do we see from the image? This is merely an exercise to get you familiar and maybe get you more confident in the understanding that reading images, like reading text, is not about any sophisticated devices, understanding what the author has said, or this is Lister, and what they have said specifically about the work. That's not where reading and interpreting a work ends. Each one comes in with their own subjective sort of histories, and those inform how we read images. And that's why I sort of want to get a word from at least maybe
If I hold it
5
like that,
people?
will the camera pick it up?
But they
Very
should also
clever
be able
little
to
bugger.
find it in the readings.
Okay, I'm just going to walk around and show them that you can.
So, yes, we can have a short conversation about the image, what's in the image. It can be as simple as describing what you see in the image physically, human beings, what the human beings doing, what do you understand the human beings to be doing, and yeah, so 10 people, yeah.
What I see in the image is a couple of young boys looking like they just came out of I don't know, their classes and they're about to head off somewhere else, and you can see like they're releasing the stress that they've dealt through school or something like that, and it just, you know, yeah, that's all I can say.
Okay, cool. Who else has something to say about the image? It's an image we should all be fairly familiar with. We've all gone to high school, or else we wouldn't be here. And, okay, yeah, hand there.
I'll say that it's rebellion trade.
Sorry?
I'll say that it's a rebellion trade resistant to institutional control by deliberately misrepresenting what it should mean by their ties and genes.
Okay, okay. So they're rebelling using, by lowering their ties.
Yeah, and then through that they form their own collective identity within the institution.
Okay.
And the black boy who's looking straight into the camera, it's like he's taunting. He looks a bit like taunting authority, I guess. The person who took this picture was an adult, and you can see from his body language there's a little bit of rebelliousness inside.
Why do you presume that the photographer was an adult? Just purely what you've read in the picture. Yeah. It's not a trick question.
It's not a trick question. Okay. Because of the way the boy in front looks, and he also you can see that they are going through that teenage angst stage, you know, and he's a bit flexing his muscle, if I can say, towards the photographer, and the boy on the left as well. The way he's looking, his uniform is a bit offish. Like, what are you gonna do? Yeah.
Okay.
Can I change my answer? I didn't see the picture perfectly.
You don't need to change your answer. There was nothing wrong with the answer to begin with. You can add to it though.
Okay, from what I look at it, I didn't see it clearly. So when I see like the boys and especially like the African kid in the middle and then all the other boys around, like the image kind of shows off an Othello paradox. I don't know if you know the story of Othello, right? The African general from, yeah, okay, it's another story, but then, so with the Othello paradox, it's more like, you get Othello, he's the only one in his race, he's the only one, and then surrounded by a pool of, you know, Venetians, and they like discredit him because they only use him for his skills and stuff like that. But when I look at the image, sure, it does shows like she just said, the teenage boys, they flexing, they showing how rowdy they can be and all that, and then you see this African boy in the middle who looks a bit like he's trying to uphold the image that they were supposed to follow, but then in a way it kind of seems as though he's not comfortable with breaking the laws, because again, like the Othello paradox, it's not his hometown or his home place where he could just be as free and rowdy like everybody else around him. So yeah, that's all I can say.
Interesting. Well, I just saw the picture now, but at first glance, it seems like the boy is the only person that's black in that picture, and it seems like it was from the olden times when this black and white were transitioning into different schools and being one. So the boy feels as though he, like from what I see, as if it doesn't belong, as if he's looking for somebody else that looks like him around him. So he doesn't feel as comfortable and something like that.
I'd like to differ with that statement because the boy looks very strong and very strong himself, from my observation. So I don't think he's uncomfortable being in that situation. And in terms of black and white, I don't think it is a thing that is uppermost on his mind. You know, he is here, he's a boy, he's feeling himself, deal with it.
Just to sort of feed back what I'm receiving. On the note of authority, I find it an interesting note also because, the adult as opposed to authority. I find it an interesting note also because the image, as a few people have mentioned, speaks to some form of resistance. The question sort of implies that as well. And who would care to resist to fellow students? And so I think in terms of the adult-student relationship, it makes sense also in terms of if a fellow student sees you with your tie down, your shirt hanging out, no one really cares. If an adult sees you with your tie down, your shirt hanging out, it's a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
Well, within that specific structure. I saw a few other hands coming up.
What I wanted to say was what I see in the image is these kids trying to retain their own individuality as opposed to being in a group. Because the point of uniform is for everybody to look the same, everybody to conform to a certain box. But they are saying, yes, we go to the school, yes, we're supposed to look like this, but I want to know myself. And how I can express that is to wear my tie differently to you guys. Yes, you can still tell that I go to school ABC, but I'm still myself.
See, before we go any further, because it's important that we also do a little bit of navel gazing. You know what's navel gazing? Introspection. Let's analyze what we are doing. See, what we are doing is we're now isolating key words. Authority, conformity, the one is suggested institutional control. The uniform. What does uniforms do? What does conforming mean? There's semiotic in this image of especially the black boy. And I call him black and not Iago from 10. And I wonder why you don't call the Venetians whiteys, because that's what they are. You understand?
I don't know.
No, it makes an interesting point. I mean, do we call a spade, or do we have this PC speak around us all the time? No, it's you must find your own stuff. But the black boy is very, very interesting. He's stepping forward almost, and he says, "Yeah, take a picture of me." I'm an individual, and he's got these gang around them, and they have their own rules of conforming, ostensibly. And the rest of the boys in the background sort of disappear into the anonymous mass that uniforms make them. You see, so it actually talks about really, very interesting things. And here's the issue. All that we read was the title, and we looked at the picture.
We haven't even gone into the title.
Yeah, we haven't even gone really into the title. And look how many ideas are already floating. You see?
I also found something interesting with the emphasis on the raciality, and then a different reading that came from these two ladies that said, actually, the race doesn't really play as a great a feature within the work because these